Can the USC Trojans football team outscore everybody in the Big Ten? Well, that depends. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate it. And we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get yourself started. We're going to look at the Trojans as they come into the Big Ten here, talk a little football, look at their offense and their defense, lack thereof. No update yet on Bill O'Brien at Ohio State, but what if he does leave? I got a name for you. And Big Ten Classics and live action coming up this weekend. Be sure, before you do anything, though, subscribe right now, please. Asking you, and to follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. And that way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every week. All right, let's do this. The USC Trojans, they're coming. They're coming to the Big Ten. They're practically here. And they're a bit of a wild card, I think, coming into the Big Ten this year. Arguably, they're the biggest brand name entering the league this season. And they have a long history of national championships and Heisman trophies and a long list of top-notch NFL alumni. They are college football. The Big Ten is thrilled to have them. And while it will be strange for a while, leaving the defunct Pac-12, USC will be glad to be in the Big Ten too. I mean, over the years, they've had 11 national championships. They have 8 Heisman trophies. Well, 7, unless you count Reggie Bush. It's a technicality. But how do you think they'll do in the Big Ten? If you're a Trojan fan, how do you think your team will do? I think it depends. And I don't mean to be a wishy-washy answer. You know I always give you an opinion, but I really think it depends on who they're playing and when. You could probably say that for just about anybody. But in USC's case, I think it really is a factor here. So let's talk about this a little bit. Look, there's no doubt that the USC Trojans, they like to score a lot of points. A lot of points, right? But they give up a lot of points. That's always been Lincoln Riley's style, whether he's at Oklahoma or whether he's at Southern Cal. Just outscore the other team in a shootout. That's how you win football games. At least that's his philosophy. But we don't have a lot of shootouts in the Big Ten, do we? No, we don't. Big Ten teams put just as much of an emphasis on defense as they do offense. Half of the Big Ten's defenses are really, really good. And last season, 3 of the Big Ten's defenses were elite. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, 1, 2, 3 in the country, not in the Big Ten, in the country in scoring defense. And that usually doesn't change from year to year. I don't have to tell you teams like Iowa, who aren't even in the top echelon of the Big Ten teams defensively, they would just assume win the game 12-0. And that's with a touchdown, a field goal, and a safety. I mean, that's just how they are. It's a badge of honor. I'll be especially interested to see how USC makes the transition into the Big Ten in 2024, because 2023, frankly, was a big disappointment for the USC Trojans. It really was. And I think if Trojan fans are honest, they would say the same thing. Pretty disappointing for Troy. They have the defending Heisman Trophy winner and this year's presumptive number 1 pick in the NFL draft, and Caleb Williams at quarterback. USC had real aspirations of winning the Pac-12, closing out the last year of the Pac-12 with a championship and making a college football playoff run. Others had the same aspirations for USC. And the Trojans, they started the season ranked 6th in the country, right where they wanted to be, and they can make their move from there. But they fell short of their goals. They had an 8-5 record this past year. And despite their shortcomings, they could still move the ball and score almost each and every week. I mean, that was not the problem. Offense was not the problem. defense was. And, for the longest time, Lincoln Riley, their head football coach, whether he was at Oklahoma or Southern Cal, he was either stubborn or he was overly loyal to his defensive staff. But he finally made a change. I don't know if he saw the writing on the wall. We all saw it years ago, but he finally saw the writing on the wall, decided to make a change at defensive coordinator this year, and has hired across town UCLA's Danton Lynn as a new defensive coordinator. And he's had some success in the past at UCLA. At quarterback, despite losing Caleb Williams to the NFL, Miller Moss stepped right in the Holiday Bowl, and everybody immediately forgot about Caleb Williams. He wowed everybody with 6 touchdowns in the win over Louisville. So it appears that the USC Trojans seem to be in good shape at quarterback. Okay? Surprise, surprise. Now, I also wonder when I'm thinking about Lincoln Riley on this deal, I wonder a little bit, whether he's the long-term guy at Southern Cal. Now, it concerns me a little bit. Look, there were rumors just a couple of months ago that he was making, or his people were making, overtures to NFL teams to gauge interest in his services. Again, that was in the middle of last season when things were starting to slip a little bit. There were even stories about whether a team that might be interested in drafting Caleb Williams at quarterback, would they also be interested in a coach-quarterback combo? Yeah, draft Caleb Williams in the draft and also hire Lincoln Riley as your head coach, a combo deal. Now, nothing ever became of those stories, but it makes you wonder. Again, my philosophy on this podcast. Where there's smoke, there's some fire somewhere, and I believe that he probably did have somebody make a phone call or two to see if there'd be any interest. Frankly, I think a lot of college coaches are doing that. We're going to talk about Chip Kelly tomorrow. He's begging to get out of UCLA. He would jump to a quote-unquote cush, easy NFL assistant job in a heartbeat right now. I think a lot of coaches are looking at it with everything going on in college football, which we have documented at length here on Locked On Big Ten. Coaching football is getting harder by the second. And, again, another moment on Chip Kelly. He has interviewed for 2 offensive coordinator jobs in the NFL. So we're going to discuss that a little bit tomorrow, in addition to kind of looking at UCLA's jump into the Big Ten. I don't know if you've noticed, unless you're an everydayer, these last few days, we've been kind of focusing on football with the new teams coming into the Big Ten, the 4 new teams. That's what we did. Oregon on Tuesday, Wednesday, we did Washington. Here today doing the USC Trojans, and then we'll check out UCLA by the end of the week. So look, there's a lot of challenges for USC for sure, but they have the potential to be great. I will tell you this. They were down in the dumps about a quarter of a century ago, 25 years ago. And I was actually living in Los Angeles at the time in the early 2000s when Pete Carroll took over. You know what the thought was back then? The thought was with Pete Carroll, he was an unsuccessful NFL coach. He was just a guy. He looked like he was a little older at the time. He's just one of those guys always with the white hair. And people thought, this is just a retirement gig, right? He's going to go collect another paycheck. And, he hasn't been that successful before. And he's just going to get some sunshine in Los Angeles and see where it goes. Well, many people thought that. And many people were wrong because they got on a roll. Remember, at this time, there's no NFL team in Los Angeles at the time. So other than Kobe Bryant and the Lakers, Pete Carroll, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, they were like the Beatles in Los Angeles, a city, a town that is very difficult to impress people and get people's attention. They were the real deal, believe me. But back to 2024. It's going to be challenging enough for USC to make this transition into a new conference and then all the traveling all across the country. And by the way, the schedule makers didn't do them any favors either. In fact, USC has a brutal slate when you look at their schedule. They open up in Las Vegas, neutral site game against LSU, and then they have a home date against Utah State. Then after an early bye week, they're going to need it because they're going to prepare for their next game. That's going to be at the Big House against Michigan. Welcome to the Big Ten, right? 3 weeks later, they're hosting Penn State. They're at Washington. They're at UCLA. They close out at home with a traditional game against Notre Dame. I mean, it's a tough schedule. There could be a few losses on there for sure. Personally, I'm looking forward to their exciting brand of football and their exciting style of play. And I think if they can hold teams under 30, they can win a lot of football games. And I say that seriously. I'm not joking. I mean, they're not going to fix that defense right away. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But they can win a lot of games 35-30, 40-30, 50-30. I mean, that's kind of what they do. They just got to get a little better on defense. What do you guys think? Especially you new Trojan fans. We're just checking this out. Love to hear from you. You can hit us up on Twitter or X at TalkBig10 Also, our website, TalkBig10 10.com. You see the scroll on the bottom. By the way, when you go there, that's where we archive all of our stuff. You can get shirts, swag, pennants, everything right there at the website. And of course, comments on YouTube are always welcome as well. If you want to get in contact with me that way, always absolutely love it. All right. What if Bill O'Brien does leave Ohio State and it's looking like that could be imminent to go take the Boston College job? What does Ryan Day do? And one Michigan coach says the grass isn't always greener on the other side if you're thinking about going to the transfer portal. We got all that right here on Locked On Big Ten. Happy Super Bowl week to all of you who celebrate, from our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl regimented. Couch, snacks, beverage, phone, watching my prop bets, all the stuff. I've been telling you about this for a long time. FanDuel has so many ways for you to close out the football season with a win or two or three or a bunch of them. In addition to just betting on Super Bowl 58, Chiefs, 49ers -2. There are many other things, like who's going to score a touchdown, who's going to score the first touchdown, who's going to score the most touchdowns, heads or tails on the coin flip, what color's the Gatorade they splash on the coach, how long's the national anthem. I believe it's set at 1:26.5. You want over or you want under for Reba McEntire? Take the under. Did some research on this. So that you got all that stuff for you on FanDuel. It is a blast. New customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers. And again, if you're once in a while, join us more. Love to have you. Either way, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it. It helps us out a lot. It's free, and it gets you in our old Big Ten club. Meet on a regular basis. Subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day, especially you West Coast people that just discovering us. You're a fan of the Washington Huskies, the Oregon Ducks, the USC Trojans, the UCLA Bruins. Come on, the more the merrier here. And also don't forget to check out our website, talkbig10 10.com. All right, a moment ago, I was talking about the Trojans entry into the Big Ten, and I mentioned that we will be discussing UCLA tomorrow and how Chip Kelly seems to be wanting to get out of that job. If he's been interviewing for offensive coordinator jobs in the NFL, do you think he would take one in college? Probably not. You can kind of make the argument that a college coach going to the NFL as a coordinator, maybe some sort of lateral move, maybe, but a head coach at a college going to an offensive coordinator position at another college, that would be viewed as a step down. But unless he just really wants to get out being head coach at UCLA, like he seems to. Just spitballing here. You think Chip Kelly would take the Ohio State offensive coordinator job if Bill O'Brien decided he wanted to bolt for that Boston College gig? I don't think so. I saw somebody suggest it. I read a couple of different pieces online about it today. I don't think so. That's too much of a downward step for a college coach like that. I don't think it'll happen unless he just really wants to get out of there. But, if Bill O'Brien moves on, I think what happens now is some sort of Ryan Day, Brian Hartline combination on offense. Maybe Hartline actually calls the plays instead of preparing the offense. I know Ryan Day had already done that in the past. Some sort of combo like that, I think. I don't know if that would be awkward or not. I don't know what their situation is with Hartline. They kind of pushed Hartline out of the way a little bit to bring in Bill O'Brien. So I don't know. I don't know what would happen. A lot of ideas spinning through my head, and I'm sure yours, and I'm sure I'll hear about them on the comments as well. But I thought I'd throw it out there before this happens so that we can discuss it and be prepared when it does. All right. Now, a word from the newly promoted Michigan offensive coordinator, Kirk Campbell. He's got a message for Michigan football kids who may be considering a change of scenery in the transfer portal following the departure of Jim Harbaugh. Now, several defensive assistant coaches and, of course, their team's weight trainer, they've all left. A lot of them left. I think 4 of them have left altogether. Anyway, the kids so far staying. Campbell says the grass is not always greener somewhere else, and he's encouraging everybody to stay. You're there for Michigan, not necessarily the coaches. And he knows personal decisions are made on a case-by-case decision, so he understands that. But, when a head coach leaves a school, that reopens the transfer portal for the next 30 days for the kids. That's a semi-new deal in college football. So the deadline now, because Jim Harbaugh left, for Michigan players to decide whether they want to go into the transfer portal or not. This 30-day period will be through February 23rd. So a couple more weeks left there. And then there's the other transfer portal period right after spring football for everybody. So far, only one player has entered the portal, and that's Reese Atterbury. That's it. So far, that's a much different response than the kids at Tuscaloosa that left in drove. 26 kids and/or recruits left as soon as Nick Saban retired. By the way, you see Nick Saban's going to be on game day, regular. He's got a job already next year. Pretty interesting. Anyway, also, do you remember Harlon Barnett? You Michigan State fans do. He had the impossible job of holding the Michigan State Spartans football team together as the interim head coach this past fall when the school fired Mel Tucker early in the season for alleged sexual misconduct. Now, Barnett has landed a gig in the Big Ten. He's going to be the defensive backs coach at Northwestern. All right. He had such a long history there at Michigan State for 15 years, 2 different runs, played under George Perlis back in the late 80s in East Lansing. Spartans this year went 2-8 under Barnett as the interim head coach this past season. All right. So let's take a look at some hoops here. Thursday night, just one men's game on the slate on the Big Ten Network. 13-9 Iowa at 11-11 Penn State. Again, that's on the Big Ten Network, 7 o'clock Eastern. A lot of women in action tonight. Michigan State is at number 14, Indiana. That is part of a Peacock doubleheader. It starts at 7 o'clock Eastern. The 9 o'clock game is number 5, Ohio State. Those ladies have been playing really well. Good basketball lately. They're at Minnesota. Again, that's the 9 o'clock Eastern game on Peacock. Northwestern's at Illinois at 7 o'clock. Penn State, they are at number 2, Iowa, taking on Caitlin Clark as she marches toward the all-time scoring title. That's at 9 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. If she gets a bunch of points here, I think she's 66 away. So, like, for example, she scores 33. She probably can beat the all-time scoring record in her next game. All right, so probably 2 games away. So we'll root for that and keep an eye on that as well here on Locked On Big Ten. The Locked On Network has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. It's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, all the local experts of Locked On, plus your national shows, everything right there. Locked On Sports Today. After you subscribe here, feel free to subscribe there. Then you'll have them both. All right. We always like to look ahead to the weekend at this point of the week for Big Ten Classics on the Big Ten Network. We have some good ones there. And while we're there, we take a look at some of their live broadcast schedule going in the weekend. I know you're going to be watching a lot of Super Bowl, but that's late Sunday. We'll look at Friday, Saturday, early Sunday, get you all taken care of with all that. That's coming up in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. If you want to go to the big game, you can. Game Time. That's the way to go. Check out Game Time. It is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, Well, let's talk about the big game. Right now, all users get $100 off when they buy a big game ticket for Sunday with the code Vegas100 because it's in Vegas. Vegas100. Got great last minute deals, all that stuff. They have their flash deals, zone deals. If you got to go last minute, you can find something. You absolutely can. Plus, they got views from your seats right there on your phone before you buy. You can buy with just a couple of quick clicks on the phone. Just buy tickets in seconds. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event, even an hour afterward. There's zone deals. You pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats for big time savings. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Again, right now, all Game Time users get $100 off a big game ticket with the code Vegas100. That's Vegas100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use the code VEGAS100, Vegas100, for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the big game and you want to use Locked On for anything else, use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's take a look at our closing feature today. I'm going to put it on the screen here. And if you're on audio only, I will describe it as best I can. On Thursdays, we like to look ahead to the weekend, to the Big Ten Network, what they have on, called our Big Ten Classics. This time of year, they have a few classics, not as many as the off season. So we also take a look at their live broadcasts as well that they have coming up with basketball, wrestling, and just about anything you can think of. So here we go. These are Eastern times. If you're listening on audio only, Friday, February 9th, and 2:00 Eastern time. It is a Purdue basketball classic from 2000, Indiana at Purdue at Mackey Arena. That is the one where Jerron Cornell scored 25 points, lit up the Hoosiers for 6 3-pointers, and an 83-77 win over the 11th ranked Hoosiers. That was 24 years ago. At 6:00 Eastern time, a Big Ten moment. This is something a little different. 28 hours at Carver Hawkeye Arena. You say, well, what is that? Well, that's where Caitlin Clark and Peyton Sanford, they take a look back at a 28-hour period at Carver Hawkeye Arena and Iowa's dramatic wins over Indiana and Michigan State during one weekend. So that'll be a little fun, a little something different. At 7:00 Eastern, it's Big Ten Wrestling, Friday Night Wrestling on the Big Ten Network. Michigan is at Nebraska. And then at 9:00 Eastern, it is Penn State at Iowa. We turn our attention to Saturday at 10:00 in the morning, Eastern time, Saturday, February 10th, an Indiana basketball classic. We got to do equal time here. I just gave you a scenario where Purdue won. Here's an Indiana win last year, 2023. This was Jalen Hood Schifino's best game. Career high 35 points. And number 17 IU won over Purdue, who was ranked 5th in the country at the time, 79-71, to sweep the Boilermakers last year. And then Jalen Hood Schifino went on to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft with the Los Angeles Lakers, largely based on the attention he got from this game. He was great all season, but he didn't come close to scoring 35 on any given night. This was his best game for sure. At 12 noon, Big Ten men's basketball, Wisconsin at Rutgers. Wisconsin really playing well. They had a couple bumps on the road lately, and then at Rutgers is a tough place to play with all that defense they play out there. Purdue got out of there with their lives. About was it 8 points? I think it was. Wisconsin may have their hands full, but I think they'll win. Meanwhile, at 2:00 Eastern time, women's basketball in the Big Ten, Rutgers, speaking of Rutgers, they're at Michigan at Chrysler Arena. And at 6:30, more Big Ten men's basketball, Michigan is at Nebraska. Nebraska, I keep telling you, Nebraska at home, they're like running into a buzzsaw, and Juwan Howard and Michigan having a very, very tough time this year. So it's a good opportunity for Nebraska to get a win, but you never know. That's why we play the games. All right, on to Sunday, February 11th. I'm only going to give you some early stuff here. Why? I know. You're going to be watching the Super Bowl later on. That's why I left all that blank space on the bottom. 1:00 Eastern time, Big Ten men's basketball, Penn State at Northwestern. It's a tough play. Boo Booey at home is pretty tough. That'll be a tough one for the Nittany Lions. And then at 3 o'clock Eastern, more men's basketball. Minnesota is at Iowa. So there you have it. That's the slate, a combination of classics and also live action on the Big Ten Network this weekend, going into Super Bowl weekend. So you can watch the Big Ten stuff as well as you get ready for all that. All right, so it's going to be a huge sports weekend. It's going to be fantastic. And most of the country, it's cold and you want to stay inside anyway. Just flick that remote control, watch stuff, Big Ten Network, Super Bowl stuff, all that. It's all right there. Very easy to get to. All right. In the meantime, there are many ways for you to get a hold of me. And as you know, Twitter or X, always talk about that here on this program at Talk Big Ten number 10. You can make the comments with YouTube. And as you see the scroll on the bottom, talkbig10 number 10.com is our website where we archive all of our podcasts. We've got them all there. And then we also break them off per school, real easy to find. You want to find out the last time I talked about Purdue or did something on Michigan football or the Buckeye, it'll be under their respective schools. And you can also get some swag, some Big Ten swag, or for your own team, shirts, hats from your own team, pennants like we have here on the wall. Got a lot of comments from the West Coast. They love the new edition over here. So I was very excited. I got them a long time ago. Just been waiting for the right moment to put them up. But I figured as long as we're starting to talk about these teams, I go ahead and put them up on the wall. So the set is complete until expansion happens again. Then I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't. I'll figure it out then. Be sure to subscribe if you don't mind. That would help us out so much. Subscribe. It's free. And you can follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And don't forget, in addition to Locked On Big Ten, the Locked On Network has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. And it's here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with all the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows. And it covers each and every league, each and every team. It's all there. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe there for the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, that will just about do it here. Very excited. Again, tomorrow, we're going to look at the UCLA Bruins a little closer and the Chip Kelly situation, if we think he's a long-timer there or not. In the meantime, that'll do it. And that'll get us into the weekend for all the Big Ten action you want. And the Super Bowl, it's here. Big sports weekend. Thank you for checking us out. Can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow. I'm Craig Shemon for Locked On Big Ten.